The kitchen clock read 2:47 a.m. when I heard Lauren's car pull into our driveway. I'd been sitting at our scratched wooden table for 3 hours, nursing cold coffee and staring at the stack of unpaid bills she'd left scattered across the surface. My name's Sean Dwyer, and I own Dwyer's Auto Repair on the edge of Millfield, Maine. Nothing fancy, but it pays the bills and keeps food on the table, or used to anyway. The front door opened with that familiar squeak I'd been meaning to fix for months. Lauren's heels clicked across the hardwood floor, each step deliberate and sharp. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing that black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. Her lipstick was smudged, and her hair looked like she'd been running her fingers through it. "You're up late," she said, not meeting my eyes. She moved to the sink and poured herself a glass of water, her movements careful and controlled. "Couldn't sleep," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Funny thing about insomnia. Makes you notice things you normally miss. Like how you've been coming home later and later these past 2 months." Lauren turned around, leaning against the counter. Even at almost 3 in the morning, she looked composed, like she'd rehearsed this moment. "We need to talk, Sean." "I'm listening." She took a deep breath, and for a split second, I thought I saw something that might have been regret flicker across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold determination I'd been seeing more and more lately. "I'm not happy," she said. "I haven't been happy for a long time. This marriage, this life we've built together, it's not enough anymore." I set down my coffee cup, the ceramic making a soft clink against the wood. "Not enough. That's interesting phrasing, Lauren. Care to elaborate?" "Don't make this harder than it has to be." She crossed her arms over her chest. "I've been seeing Jake Dalton again." Jake Dalton. Her high school boyfriend, the golden boy who'd left town for college and come back 5 years ago with a fancy business degree and a yacht brokerage down at the marina. The same Jake who'd been sniffing around Lauren ever since he returned, always finding excuses to stop by her office at Millfield Marine Supply. "How long?" I asked. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." She sighed, as if my need to know was an inconvenience. 3 months. 3 months. While I'd been working 14-hour days to keep the garage afloat, while I'd been bringing her coffee in bed every morning and asking about her day every evening, she'd been planning her exit strategy. "So what happens now?" I asked. "You want a divorce? We split everything down the middle and go our separate ways?" Lauren's laugh was bitter. "It's not that simple, Sean. Jake and I, we want to be together. Really together. But we're not ready to make it public yet. His business is still getting established, and my position at the company requires a certain image." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "What exactly are you asking me to do, Lauren?" She met my eyes then, and I saw no shame there, no guilt, just cold calculation. "I'm giving you 2 choices. You can stay married to me and look the other way while I see Jake, or you can make yourself scarce when we need privacy. Think of it as an arrangement that works for everyone." "An arrangement." I repeated the words slowly, tasting the bitterness of them. "You want me to be your cover story while you play house with your boyfriend." "I want you to be practical. We both know you can't afford to lose half of everything in a divorce. The garage is barely breaking even, and this house is the only asset we have. Jake has connections, resources. He can help both of us if we handle this maturely." I stood up from the table, my chair scraping against the floor. Lauren took a small step backward, and I realized she was actually nervous. Good. She should be. "You know what, Lauren? You're right. I do have 2 choices." I moved closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. "But you forgot about option 3. "What's option 3? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "Option 3 is you start packing your things before I decide to have a conversation with Jake about keeping his hands off my wife." Lauren's composure cracked just a little. "You can't threaten him, Sean. That's assault." "Did I threaten anyone? I just said I wanted to have a conversation. Jake's a reasonable guy, right? I'm sure we can work something out man to man." "You're being ridiculous. This doesn't have to be ugly." "Ugly?" I laughed, and the sound echoed off the kitchen walls. "Lauren, you just asked me to watch you cheat on me with my blessing. We passed ugly about 3 sentences ago." She straightened her shoulders, putting on that professional mask she wore at work. "Fine. If that's how you want to play this, I'll be staying at Melanie's tonight. We can discuss this like adults when you've had time to cool down. You do that. Give my regards to Melanie. I'm sure she's been real supportive during your little crisis of conscience." Lauren grabbed her purse from the counter and headed for the door. She paused in the doorway, looking back at me. "This doesn't have to destroy everything we've built, Sean. Think about what I'm offering." "I am thinking about it," I said. "I'm thinking about it real hard." After she left, I sat back down at the table and stared at the closed door. The house felt different now, like something fundamental had shifted in its foundation. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Jake's number. My thumb hovered over the call button for a long moment before I set the phone aside. Not yet. If Lauren wanted to play games, I needed to understand the rules first. I walked upstairs to our bedroom and opened Lauren's jewelry box. Hidden underneath her earrings was a spare key to her car. I pocketed it and then moved to her dresser, pulling out the bottom drawer where she kept her old journals and photo albums. Tucked behind a stack of college yearbooks was her tablet, the one she claimed was broken. The screen lit up when I pressed the power button. It wasn't broken at all. I knew Lauren's passwords. After 8 years of marriage, you pick up these things. Her tablet synced with her phone, which meant I had access to her text messages, her email, everything. I told myself I was just confirming what I already knew, but as I scrolled through weeks of messages between Lauren and Jake, I realized I'd been naive about just how deep this betrayal ran. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The messages were explicit, detailed, and completely without remorse. They'd been planning this for months, not 3. Jake had been coaching her on what to say to me, how to handle the conversation. There were messages about hotel reservations, about times when I'd be at the garage, about how to manage their situation until Jake's business was stable enough for them to go public. But it was the group chat that really made my hands shake. Lauren, her best friend Melanie, and her coworker Cassie had been discussing the whole thing like it was a soap opera. They called me the mechanic and made jokes about how clueless I was. Melanie had even suggested that Lauren should try to get me to agree to the arrangement, calling it the perfect solution for a modern woman. Cassie's contribution was particularly charming. Just make sure you get it in writing. You don't want him changing his mind and causing problems later. I set the tablet aside and walked to the window, looking out at the empty driveway. The streetlight cast everything in a pale yellow glow, making the familiar neighborhood look foreign and cold. Lauren thought she was offering me a choice, but she'd already made her decision months ago. She'd planned this whole conversation, probably rehearsed it with her friends. They'd all had a good laugh about poor, stupid Sean and how easy it would be to manipulate him. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app, typing a single line, "Let the games begin." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I spent the hours before dawn planning. By the time the sun came up over Millfield Harbor, I had a list of 17 different ways to make Lauren's life complicated. I settled on starting with the practical stuff first. At 6 a.m., I drove to the garage and backed Lauren's Honda Civic into Bay 3. Mick Torino, my mechanic, and the closest thing I had to a best friend, showed up an hour later with coffee and donuts from Rosie's Diner. "Boss, why is Mrs. Dwyer's car in here? She need work done?" Mick was 62, built like a fire hydrant, and had been working on cars since before I was born. He'd taught me half of what I knew about engines and all of what I knew about dealing with difficult customers. More importantly, he was loyal to a fault and had never liked Lauren much. "Lauren and I are having some marital difficulties," I said, popping the hood on the Civic. "She's decided she needs some space to figure things out." "Space, huh?" Mick sipped his coffee and watched me disconnect the battery. "That's what my second wife said right before she ran off with that insurance salesman from Bangor." "Lauren's not running off. She's just exploring her options with Jake Dalton." Mick nearly choked on his coffee. "Jake Dalton? That pretty boy with the boat business?" "The very same." "Well, that explains why she's been dressing up for work lately. I saw her at the grocery store last week wearing more makeup than a carnival performer." He paused, studying my face. "So what's the plan, boss?" I pulled the spark plugs from the engine and set them on my workbench. "The plan is to give Lauren exactly what she asked for. Space. By sabotaging her car, by creating some logistical challenges that might help her think more clearly about her priorities." Mick grinned. "I like the way you think. What do you need me to do?" While Mick drained the oil from Lauren's car and replaced it with water, I walked to the office and made some phone calls. The first was to our bank, where I explained to the manager that I suspected fraudulent activity on our joint accounts and needed to freeze them temporarily. The second was to the DMV, where I confirmed that Lauren's car was titled in my name alone, a decision we'd made years ago for insurance purposes. The third call was to my lawyer, Bill Hendricks, who'd handled the paperwork when I bought the garage. "Sean, good to hear from you. What can I do for you?" "I need to know my options, Bill. Lauren's having an affair and she wants me to just accept it. Legally speaking, where do I stand?" Bill was quiet for a moment. Maine's a no-fault divorce state, so the affair won't affect property division. But if she's making unreasonable demands or trying to coerce you into an arrangement you don't want, that's different. Are you thinking about divorce? I'm thinking about everything. Can you draw up some papers? Nothing final, just something that outlines what a divorce would look like financially. I can have something ready by tomorrow afternoon. Sean, whatever you're planning, make sure you stay on the right side of the law. Always do, Bill. Always do. By noon, I'd posted Lauren's car for sale on 3 different websites. The asking price was fair but firm. Cash only, immediate pickup required. I'd gotten 4 serious inquiries within 2 hours. I was updating the listings when my phone rang. Lauren's number. Sean, where's my car? I went to Melanie's driveway this morning, and it wasn't there. Your car's fine. It's getting some maintenance done. What kind of maintenance? It was running perfectly yesterday. Preventive stuff. Oil change, tune-up, brake inspection. You know how important safety is to me. There was a long pause. I need my car, Sean. I have to work. Melanie can drive you, or maybe Jake can pick you up. I thought you two were spending more time together anyway. Don't be petty. When will it be ready? Hard to say. These things take time. Could be a few days, could be longer. Depends on what we find when we dig deeper into the engine. Lauren's voice got sharp. What's wrong with the engine? Nothing that can't be fixed, for the right price. She hung up on me. I was still smiling when Mick came into the office, wiping his hands on a rag. Car's ready for its new owner, he said. Though I feel bad for whoever buys it. Gonna need some work before it runs again. Don't worry about that. The buyer's getting exactly what they pay for. At 3 o'clock, a college kid from Portland showed up with $2,000 cash and a trailer. Lauren's Honda disappeared down Route 1, headed for its new life as a project car. I deposited the cash in my personal account, the one Lauren didn't have access to. That evening, I drove to the Shipwreck, Millfield's only real bar and the unofficial headquarters for local gossip. Rita Kowalski had been tending bar there for 15 years, and she knew more about the town's secrets than the mayor's wife. Sean Dwyer, she called out when I walked in. Haven't seen you in here for months. What brings you to my establishment on a Tuesday night? Thought I'd catch up on current events, see what's happening around town. Rita poured me a beer without being asked. Current events, huh? Well, let's see. The Hendersons' marriage is falling apart because he can't stop gambling on football games. Mary Sullivan's daughter got accepted to nursing school but can't afford tuition, and Jake Dalton's been buying a lot of expensive champagne lately, always for 2 people. Jake Dalton, the boat guy? That's the one. Real charmer, that Jake. Always has been, ever since high school. Of course, charm doesn't always translate to character, if you know what I mean. I took a sip of my beer. What do you mean? Rita leaned across the bar, lowering her voice. Jake's got a reputation with the ladies. Always has. His business partner, Sam Morrison, comes in here sometimes after they've had meetings. Sam's a nervous type, always worried about something. Last week he was going on about how Jake's personal life was going to hurt the business if he wasn't more careful. Careful about what? About picking his targets. Sam's exact words were, messing around with married women is bad for business, especially when their husbands have friends in town. I finished my beer and left a generous tip. Thanks for the conversation, Rita. Always educational. Anytime, Sean. You take care of yourself, you hear? I drove home through the quiet streets of Millfield, past the harbor where Jake kept his office, past the marine supply company where Lauren worked, past all the familiar landmarks of a life that had just gotten a lot more complicated. My phone buzzed with a text from Lauren. We need to talk. Tomorrow after work. I typed back, looking forward to it. Lauren showed up at the garage the next afternoon driving Melanie's silver Lexus. She parked next to the office and sat in the car for a full minute before getting out, probably steeling herself for the conversation. I watched her through the window, noting how she checked her appearance in the side mirror before walking to the door. Sean, we need to discuss this situation like adults. Come on in. Mick, take 15. Mick nodded and headed outside, but not before giving Lauren a look that could have frozen the harbor. Once we were alone, Lauren took a seat across from my desk, crossing her legs and folding her hands in her lap. Professional mode, just like at the bank or the lawyer's office. First, I want my car back. Immediately. Your car's been sold. The professional mask slipped. Sold? You can't sell my car. Actually, I can. It was titled in my name, remember? Insurance purposes, you said. Seemed like a smart financial decision at the time. Lauren's face went pale. That car was worth $8,000. Got $2,000 for it. Cash sale, no financing hassles. Sometimes you have to take what the market offers. $2,000? Sean, that's theft. That's business. Speaking of which, I've frozen our joint accounts pending a review of our financial situation. Seemed prudent given the circumstances. Lauren stood up, her hands clenched into fists. You can't do this. I need access to that money. I have bills, responsibilities. So do I. The mortgage on this place, the equipment loans, the business insurance. Funny thing about responsibilities, Lauren. They don't go away just because you're having a midlife crisis. This isn't a midlife crisis. This is me trying to find some happiness in a marriage that stopped working years ago. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. When did it stop working? Was it before or after you started planning your affair with Jake? I never planned anything. It just happened. Really, because I've got text messages that suggest otherwise. Lots of them, very detailed ones. Lauren's composure cracked completely. You went through my phone? Your tablet, actually, the one you said was broken. Amazing how technology works these days. Cloud storage, automatic syncing, a person's whole life just floating around in cyberspace. She sank back into the chair. What do you want, Sean? I want my wife back. The one I married 8 years ago, before she decided that our life together wasn't exciting enough. But that woman seems to be gone, so I'll settle for honesty. I've been honest with you. No, you've been strategic. There's a difference. Honest would have been coming to me 6 months ago and saying you were unhappy. Honest would have been suggesting counseling, or a trial separation, or any of the dozen other ways couples work through problems. Strategic was planning your exit while keeping me around as a safety net. Lauren was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. I never meant for it to happen this way. But it did happen this way, and now we both have to live with the consequences. What consequences? I pulled a manila envelope from my desk drawer and slid it across to her. Divorce papers, preliminary ones, just so we both understand what we're looking at. Bill Hendricks drew them up yesterday. Lauren opened the envelope with shaking hands. As she read, her face went through several different expressions: surprise, anger, fear. This gives you everything: the house, the business, even my retirement account. Maine's an equitable distribution state, not a community property state. The judge looks at who contributed what to the marriage and divides things accordingly. I've been supporting both of us for the last 3 years, while you've been saving your salary for what exactly? Your escape fund? I was trying to be responsible. You were trying to hedge your bets? Oh, well, congratulations. You've successfully hedged yourself right out of half of everything. Lauren set the papers aside. What do you want me to do, Sean? Beg? Apologize? Promise to never see Jake again? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You made a choice, and now you get to live with it. No takebacks, no do-overs, no arrangements that let you have everything you want without paying the price. My phone rang, Jake Dalton's number. Answer it, Lauren said quickly. Please, Sean, let me talk to him. I hit the speaker button. Dwyer's auto. Sean, it's Jake Dalton. I think we need to have a conversation. About what, Jake? About Lauren. About the situation we've all found ourselves in. I looked at Lauren, who was shaking her head frantically. What situation is that, Jake? Look, I know you're upset, and I understand why. But taking it out on Lauren isn't going to solve anything. She needs her car, and she needs access to her money. Her car's been sold, and the money's tied up in legal proceedings. Divorce is complicated that way. There was a pause. Nobody said anything about divorce? I did. About 5 minutes ago. Lauren can fill you in on the details. Sean, be reasonable. We're all adults here. We can work something out that makes everyone happy. I looked at Lauren, who was staring at the phone like it might explode. Everyone happy. That's an interesting concept, Jake. What did you have in mind? Why don't we meet for drinks tonight? The 3 of us. We can discuss this like civilized people. The 3 of us? Like some kind of negotiation? Like 3 people who want to find a solution that works for everyone. I smiled at Lauren, who looked like she was going to be sick. You know what, Jake? That sounds like a great idea. How about the shipwreck at 8 o'clock? Rita makes a great martini. The shipwreck's a little public, don't you think? Maybe somewhere more private? Jake, if we're going to discuss my marriage, I want witnesses, lots of them. See you at 8. I hung up and looked at Lauren. Well, this should be interesting. Sean, please, don't do this. Jake doesn't understand small towns. He doesn't know how people talk. Then maybe it's time he learned. The shipwreck was packed by 7:30. Word had gotten around town that Sean Dwyer was meeting his cheating wife and her boyfriend for drinks, and half of Millfield had decided they needed a beer that particular evening. Rita had wisely scheduled extra staff, and the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. I arrived first, taking a table in the center of the room where everyone could see and hear everything. Mick was already there, sitting at the bar with Old Man Kirby, my 70-year-old neighbor who'd retired from the state police 5 years ago. Rita brought me a beer without being asked. "Quite a crowd tonight," she observed. "Word travels fast in a small town." "It does indeed. Sean, whatever you're planning, just remember that everyone's watching." "That's exactly what I'm counting on." Lauren and Jake arrived together at 8:15. Jake looked like he'd stepped out of a yacht club catalog: khakis, polo shirt, boat shoes without socks. Lauren had dressed down for the occasion, probably hoping to blend in, but she still looked like she was attending a business meeting rather than having drinks with her husband. They approached my table cautiously, Jake leading the way with his hand on Lauren's back. The gesture was possessive, territorial, and everyone in the bar noticed it. "Sean," Jake said, extending his hand. "Thanks for agreeing to meet." I didn't take his hand. "Jake, Lauren, please sit down. Can I buy you folks a drink?" Jake ordered a scotch on the rocks. Lauren asked for white wine. Rita delivered the drinks personally, lingering long enough to make it clear she was listening to every word. "So," Jake said, settling back in his chair, "here we are." "Here we are," I agreed. "Three adults having a civilized conversation about my wife's affair." Several conversations at nearby tables stopped. Jake glanced around nervously, realizing for the first time that we had an audience. "Maybe we should keep our voices down," he suggested. "Why? Ashamed of something?" Lauren leaned forward. "Sean, please. Let's just talk about this reasonably." "I'm being very reasonable. Jake wanted to discuss the situation, so let's discuss it. Jake, why don't you start by explaining your position?" Jake took a sip of his scotch, gathering his thoughts. "Look, Sean, I know this is awkward. Nobody planned for things to happen this way." "Things don't just happen, Jake. People make choices. Lauren chose to start an affair with you. You chose to pursue a married woman. Those were deliberate decisions. Sometimes people fall in love despite the circumstances." "Love," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling it?" I pulled out my phone and opened the text messages I'd screenshotted from Lauren's tablet. "Let me read you some of this love, Jake. This is from Lauren to you, dated last Tuesday. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again. Sean's working late, so we have the whole evening." Lauren's face went white. Jake looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. The bar had gone completely quiet. "Or how about this one from you to her? Hotel rooms booked for Saturday. Tell the mechanic you're having a girls' night with Melanie." "Sean, stop," Lauren whispered. "The mechanic. That's what you call me in your little love nest, isn't it? Not your husband, not Sean. The mechanic." Jake found his voice. "Those messages were private." "Were they? Because according to this group chat Lauren's been having with her friends, your private business has been entertainment for half the women in this town." I scrolled to another screenshot. "This is Melanie, Lauren's best friend since high school. Girl, you've got the best of both worlds. Financial security with Sean and excitement with Jake. You're living the dream." Melanie, who had just walked into the bar with her husband, froze in her tracks. Every eye in the place turned to look at her. "And here's Cassie from Lauren's office. Make sure you get pictures of the hotel room. I want to live vicariously through your adventure." Jake stood up abruptly. "That's enough. Sit down, Jake. We're just getting started. I don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do. See, you wanted to have a conversation about working something out? Well, this is me working something out. In public, with witnesses, just like you suggested." Jake remained standing, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "You're humiliating Lauren." "I'm not humiliating anyone. I'm just sharing some text messages. Lauren's own words, Jake. Your own words. If that's humiliating, maybe you should have thought about that before you sent them." Lauren was crying now, quiet tears that she tried to wipe away discreetly. "Please, Sean, stop this." "Stop what? Stop telling the truth? Stop sharing your private thoughts with the community? But Lauren, I thought you wanted honesty. I thought you wanted everything out in the open." Old Man Kirby stood up from his bar stool and walked over to our table. He was a big man, even at 70, with the kind of presence that came from 30 years of police work. "Sean, mind if I join you folks?" "Not at all, Kirby. Pull up a chair." Kirby sat down and looked directly at Jake. "You're Jake Dalton, right? Own that boat business down at the marina?" "That's right. Thought so. I've been hearing interesting things about you lately." Jake's confidence was evaporating rapidly. "What kind of things?" "Well, for instance, I heard you've been telling people that Sean here is unstable, dangerous even, that he might do something violent if he found out about you and his wife." "I never said that." Kirby pulled out his phone. Funny thing about modern technology. Sometimes conversations get recorded accidentally, like this one you had with Sam Morrison last week. He pressed play, and Jake's voice filled the bar. If the husband finds out, he could be a problem. These blue-collar guys, they don't think rationally, they just react. I'm worried he might try to hurt me or damage my business. Jake looked sick. That was taken out of context. Was it? Because it sounds to me like you were planning to paint Sean as a violent man if your affair came to light. Sounds like you were setting up a narrative where you're the victim and he's the aggressor. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, son? Jake looked around the bar, realizing that every person there was staring at him with varying degrees of disgust and contempt. I think I should go. Good idea, I said. But Jake, next time you want to have a conversation about my marriage, maybe we should do it in private. This public thing is a little messy, don't you think? Jake threw a 20 on the table and headed for the door. Lauren started to follow him, but I caught her arm. Stay, I said quietly. Finish your drink. Face the music. She sat back down, her hands shaking. The bar slowly returned to normal conversation levels, but I could feel the weight of everyone's attention still focused on our table. That was cruel, Lauren said. That was honest. You wanted everything out in the open, remember? No more secrets, no more lies. Well, congratulations. Mission accomplished. Kirby leaned back in his chair. Lauren, I've known you since you were a kid. Your parents are good people. What do you think they're going to say when they hear about this? Lauren's tears started fresh. They don't have to know. Honey, this is Millfield. Everyone's going to know by morning. The question is, what are you going to do about it? She looked at me with something that might have been hope. Sean, what do you want me to do? I want you to go home, our home. I want you to think about what you've thrown away for a few months of excitement with a man who was ready to paint me as a dangerous lunatic to protect his reputation. And then what? Then we'll see if there's anything left to save. Lauren finished her wine and stood up slowly. I'll need a ride. Melanie left. Mick will drive you, I said. Won't you, Mick? Mick nodded. Be happy to, Mrs. Dwyer. After they left, Kirby and I sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Rita brought us fresh drinks. That was well played, Sean, Kirby said finally. But you know this isn't over, right? I know. Jake's not the type to just disappear quietly. And Lauren's got too much pride to just accept defeat. What's your next move? I smiled. That depends on what their next move is. But I've got a few ideas. Jake's retaliation came faster than I expected. By Thursday morning, someone had spray-painted Psycho across the front window of my garage. They'd also slashed 2 tires on my truck and left a rotting fish on my doorstep. Subtle as a brick through a window, but effective enough to get the message across. I called Kirby first, then the police. Officer Martinez took pictures and filed a report, but we all knew the chances of proving Jake was responsible were slim. Still, it was on record, and that might matter later. Sean, you need to be careful, Martinez warned. This kind of thing has a way of escalating. I'm always careful, Tony, but I'm not going to hide in my house because some yacht salesman wants to play tough guy. Mick arrived an hour later with a thermos of coffee and a grim expression. Saw the damage from the street. That boy's got more guts than brains. Help me clean this up. I've got customers coming in this afternoon. We spent the morning scraping paint and replacing tires. Word spread quickly through town about the vandalism, and by noon I'd had visits from 3 different neighbors offering to keep an eye on the place. Mrs. Henderson from across the street brought me a casserole and a promise to call the police if she saw anyone suspicious. That Jake Dalton's no good, she declared. Never was, even in high school. His poor parents tried their best, but some apples just fall too far from the tree. Around 2 o'clock, Sam Morrison showed up. Jake's business partner looked nervous and kept glancing around like he expected someone to jump out from behind a car. Sean, can we talk? Privately? I led him into the office and closed the door. Sam was sweating despite the cool October weather. I want you to know I had nothing to do with what happened to your place this morning. Didn't figure you did, Sam. You're not the type. Jake's losing his mind over this whole situation. He's talking about hiring a lawyer, maybe filing harassment charges against you. Harassment charges? For what? He says you've been stalking him, following him around town, making threats. I laughed. Sam, I haven't left this garage except to go home and visit the shipwreck. Half the town can vouch for my whereabouts. I know that. You know that. But Jake's convinced himself that you're some kind of threat. He's talking about getting a restraining order. Let him try. Discovery should be interesting. Sam wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. Sean, I need this partnership to work. I've got everything invested in this business. If Jake keeps stirring up trouble, it's going to hurt both of us. What do you want me to do about it? Maybe you could back off a little? Let things cool down? Sam, I haven't done anything except defend myself and my marriage. If that's stirring up trouble, maybe the problem isn't with me. I know. It's just that Jake's got connections in Portland, people who might not understand small-town dynamics. If this gets out of hand, it could affect our business relationships. I studied Sam's face. He was a decent guy caught in a bad situation, trying to protect his investment while his partner self-destructed. Tell you what, Sam, I'll make you a deal. Keep Jake away from my property and my business, and I'll keep our personal issues personal. But if he comes after me again, all bets are off. What does that mean? It means I've got enough evidence of his affair with my wife to make his life very uncomfortable in this town. Text messages, hotel receipts, witness statements, the kind of thing that might interest his other business contacts, especially the married ones. Sam's face went pale. You'd destroy his reputation? I'd defend mine. There's a difference. After Sam left, I spent the rest of the afternoon working on Mrs. Patterson's Buick and thinking about endgames. Jake was escalating because he felt cornered, but he was also making mistakes. The vandalism had turned public opinion even more against him, and his threats of legal action made him look desperate. Lauren hadn't come home the previous night. According to Mick, she'd spent it at Melanie's house, probably planning her next move. I expected her to show up eventually, probably with some kind of ultimatum or peace offering. She arrived at closing time, looking tired and defeated. She'd been crying recently, and her clothes looked like she'd slept in them. Sean, we need to end this. All of it. I'm listening. Jake's talking about leaving town. His business partner is threatening to dissolve their partnership, and half his clients are canceling contracts. He says it's all because of what you did at the bar. What I did was tell the truth. If that's causing him problems, maybe he should have thought about that before he started the affair. He's blaming me for everything. Says I led him on, made him think you wouldn't care. Did you? Lauren was quiet for a long moment. I don't know anymore. I thought I knew what I wanted, but everything's such a mess now. What do you want, Lauren? Right now, today, what do you actually want? I want my life back. I want to go back to before any of this happened. That's not possible. You can't unring a bell. Then what? What happens now? I pulled the divorce papers from my desk drawer. Now you decide what kind of future you want. Sign these and we split everything according to the law. Don't sign them and we try to figure out if there's anything left to rebuild. And if I don't sign them, what would rebuilding look like? Counseling. Complete honesty about everything that happened. No contact with Jake, ever. And you'd have to live with the fact that everyone in town knows what you did. Lauren picked up the papers and read through them again. This would leave me with almost nothing. It would leave you with a fresh start and no obligations to anyone, including me. I'd have to leave Millfield, start over somewhere else. Maybe you'd find a way to rebuild your reputation here. Small towns have long memories, but they also believe in redemption if it's genuine. She set the papers aside. What would you do? If you were me? I'd figure out what I really wanted, not what I thought I wanted, and then I'd have the courage to pursue it honestly. Lauren was quiet for several minutes, staring out the window at the harbor where Jake's office sat dark and empty. He's not who I thought he was, she said finally. People rarely are. We see what we want to see, especially when we're unhappy. Were you unhappy, Sean, in our marriage? Sometimes, but I thought we were working through it together. I didn't know you'd already decided to work through it with someone else. She nodded slowly. I'll sign the papers. You sure? I'm sure, but Sean, I want you to know that I did love you. I still do, in my way. I know, I loved you too. That's what makes this so hard. Lauren signed the divorce papers with a pen that had been sitting on my desk for 8 years, the same pen I'd used to sign the lease on the garage, the mortgage on our house, all the documents that had built our life together. What happens now? She asked. Now you start over, and so do I. She stood up and walked to the door, then turned back one last time. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it. I know you are. That's something, at least. After she left, I sat in the quiet garage and watched the sun set over Millfield Harbor. Tomorrow I'd start the process of rebuilding my life, figuring out what came next for a 35-year-old divorced mechanic in a small Maine town. But tonight, I'd won. Not the way I'd wanted to win, not the prize I'd wanted to claim, but I'd stood my ground and refused to be anyone's safety net or consolation prize. I locked up the garage and drove home through the familiar streets, past the shipwreck where Rita was probably already spreading the news, past the harbor where Jake's business was quietly falling apart, past all the places where my old life had played out. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new possibilities, new choices to make. But tonight, I was free, and that was enough. The house felt different when I walked in, emptier but somehow cleaner. I made myself a sandwich and sat at the kitchen table where this whole thing had started, looking at the stack of bills that had seemed so important just a week ago. My phone buzzed with a text from Mick. "Heard the news, you okay?" I typed back, "Better than okay, see you tomorrow." And for the first time in months, I actually meant it.